This podcast was sponsored by One Thing for Certain, Two Things for Sure, a memoir continued by Craig Stewart. Available now on audible.com, all e-readers, and www.craigthewriterstewart.com.
My godmother and I have a very close relationship, so I told her, I said, girl, this ain't even my phone, this is Sean's phone. I'm going through this phone with a fine-tooth comb. So she looks at me and she's like, well, what do you see? So I'm telling her, I said, I found a picture. So she was just like, well, what kind of picture? So I showed her the picture. I still got the picture. Thank God I wasn't like completely nude in the picture. I showed her the picture. So she was just like, oh my.
This is very personal work for me.
Politics.
I believe I was called to tell my story, use my voice, be a voice for the community, to speak to and for a community of people that's been ignored, denied, overlooked.
Religion.
This is my life's work.
Religion.
I want to use words to uplift, heal, inspire, encourage.
Do something different. Every Monday at 10.
Good day, thinkers, thought leaders, progressors, and dreamers. I'm Craig the Writer Stewart, and this is So Much to Say. These are my thoughts in my voice on black shit, white shit, gay shit, and everything in between. Today we are talking to Candy and Sean. And you may actually know these ladies if you follow their social media page, their Facebook page, Candy and Sean. Today we're going to actually talk about their relationship, having been married, currently divorced, and now moving back towards building trust in their relationship with 4-year-old twins. The first thing that I wanted to know from you guys, because we've had a conversation before, but the last conversation, of course, was about me and my books and that kind of thing. But in that conversation, it came out that we don't always know about each other's communities. And so the work that I try to do is bridge those communities, whether we're talking about black and white people, gays and lesbians, black gays and white gays, whatever it is about bridging trans community, gay community. And so I want to ask you questions that I've always wanted to know, but I want
You can ask us anything. We're open books.
Okay, well, who cheated first?
Uh-oh.
This is So Much to Say.
If you put it chronologically, then it would be me.
Really?
Yes.
And I really thought it was her.
But I will say, by the grace of God, it was just all emotional and verbal. I never physically cheated with anyone, but it's still cheating. So it doesn't minimize it. It doesn't make it any better. The lying, the deceit, and all that is still a part of it, whether you are physical with someone or not. But it was me.
And just for clarity's sake, oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, just the crazy thing about it is I didn't find out until a couple years after the fact. And I found out that a lot of the time that she was pulling away from me when I was seeking her and trying to connect with her and all of that, it was during the time that she was doing all that. I just didn't know it.
How long had you been in a relationship when this emotional cheating began?
We had been together for, 6 years, almost 7 years.
Oh, wow. So for those listening, because I'm sure there are probably people listening like, well, what's the difference between emotional cheating and physical cheating? So what did that look like for you?
So the difference between it is, you do everything except for just physically have sex with the person. So it's the text messaging, the conversations, the pictures, sharing of pictures, inappropriate pictures, all of those things. So it's everything that would probably lead up to the physical act, but not getting to the physical act.
So, and I'm sure there are some that are listening that are probably thinking, well, emotional cheating is worse than physical cheating because there's actually a connection. So was that problematic for you, that it was an emotional connection? Was it the lesser of the two evils that it had not become physical?
So for me, I think my big thing when I found out was I kept feeling like, and this is something we had to deal with when we went through relationship counseling, but I kept feeling like I didn't have the whole story. It never made sense to me because in everything that I've ever done, and not to be boastful or arrogant, but every single woman that has ever sent me a nude picture of herself or a sexually suggestive picture of herself, I had sex with. So for me, I just couldn't wrap my brain around the fact that my then wife, because we're divorced now, so my then wife, I couldn't wrap my brain around the fact that the woman that I love, that I gave my last name to, my heart, mind, body, and soul to, would send pictures of what was mine to someone else and lead me to believe that there was no physical interaction thereafter. I couldn't wrap my brain around that. And so the biggest thing for me was, how do we move forward with you telling me that what came out is what was, there's nothing more to the story, etc. Because logically, from the seat that I sat in, it made no sense. So I had to look in the mirror and say, well, are you able to move forward if you never know what you consider to be the truth? If she never reveals anything else to you, are you able to forgive and move forward with the information that you have? Or do you guys just need to go your separate ways?
So let me ask this. So how did you end up telling her? And for those that don't know, because some of the people that follow my page are now watching this video, Candy, raise your hand, and Sean. So this is Candy and Sean. So how did you, Sean, know? I mean, what made you tell her that you were cheating? What precipitated you coming clean?
I didn't. I was gonna take it to the grave.
So how did you find out, Candy?
So this is a dirty story. So Sean ended up having a major surgery. He had a major surgery about a year and a half ago. It was November. It was December of 2016. Okay, so December of 2016, she had a major surgery. Anybody who's ever had a procedure know, baby, you can sleep with that phone, but when they wheel your ass back to surgery, you got to hand over that phone.
Oh, so let me find out. You went through her phone.
Yes. So, if you have not
hold on. Because I think I'm going to need to get me a glass of wine. First, I want to ask you this, and then I'm gonna scurry over here to get me a glass of wine. Why did you feel the need to go through her phone? Was there some sort of an intuition?
Yes. Long story short, yes.
I'm listening.
Yes. Was there an intuition? Yes. So for probably about 2 years prior to that moment, literally for 2 years straight, I told my best friend, I told the young lady that I was having an affair with at the time.
Wait a minute. Wait. So you had started having an affair too?
By this time, I'm talking about when I found out. When I found out.
Okay.
So by this time, during the time that everything was hitting the fan or coming to the surface, I told the young lady that I was seeing at the time, along with my best friend, that I knew for a fact Sean was cheating on me. I just had no proof. I kept saying that over and over again. I kept even telling her that.
So you had said to Sean. So you had suggested to Sean, listen, I believe something's going on.
Yes.
Okay.
Several times. Because when you are that in love with somebody or you're that connected with somebody, you know when something is off. And I kept telling them, I'm like, I know she's cheating, I just don't have the proof. So fast forward to the day that she had surgery. Now, she's going back to surgery. They give me all of her stuff. Sean has always been the type of person where she would keep a lock on the phone, the fingerprint, everything. You had to have the code. You had to have everything to get in her phone. She was not moving. She was not even going to the bathroom without that phone.
So let me ask this. So Sean, were you doing all of that because you were cheating, or that was just your nature?
It was a combination of both. I always used to have a lock on my phone, but the basically clutching it like my pearls all the time, that was because I was on garbage, and just wanted to make sure, had I not cleared everything out, because I was notorious for clearing out messages, deleting stuff, all that, trying to basically cover up my tracks. Right. So now she's in surgery for a few hours. So something tells me...
So you got time to dig.
Right. I think if I'm not mistaken, I think you still had your passcode on your phone. You know what? I think I may have taken it off because that was when we were supposed to have been trying to mend. Right.
And so that's right. So I had stopped.
That's
I
right.
had, stopped communicating with the other young lady, and I was
That's
on the
right.
straight and narrow. I was like, let me get my life together, because if I'm gonna try to do right, then let me do right. So I didn't
Right.
have a passcode on my phone anymore.
That's what it was. So there was no passcode on the phone. So your girl was sitting there in the waiting room. I'm sitting there in the waiting room with my godmother. It's myself and my godmother. So my godmother steady talking to me, and she's like, why are you so engulfed in your phone? So my godmother and I have a very close relationship. So I told her, I said, girl, this ain't even my phone. This is Sean's phone. I'm going through this phone with a fine-tooth comb. So she looks at me, and she's like, well, what do you see? So I'm telling her, I said, I found a picture. So she was just like, well, what kind of picture? So I showed her the picture. I still got the picture.
Thank God I wasn't like completely nude in the picture.
I showed her the picture. So she was just like, oh my. And so I'm telling her, I'm like, I know for a fact, wifey never sent me this picture. This is not a picture that's in my portfolio. And so this is not my body of work. You get what I'm saying? And so I could tell by the nature of the picture that at the time Sean's hair was shorter. And
So you could kind of figure out when it was.
You see what I'm saying?
I'm picking up what you're putting down.
This has to been like somewhere between 15 to 24 months prior to, based on the length of your hair.
Oh man, she figured all that out.
She was up here back then. So I'm already knowing. So I'm like, okay, you never sent me this picture. Now keep in mind, she had a major surgery, so I had to still be there for her during recovery. I spent the night with her at the hospital. I arranged for my family to take care of the kids, everything. I literally slept on the little couch next to her. I catered to her. I did everything in a manner in which she did not know. She never suspected anything, because in my mind I knew at some point we have to cross this bridge and we have to deal with what is, but now is not the time nor the place. So I literally had to sit on this for a couple of weeks before I could even bring it to her.
I don't know how you did that.
My godmother talked me through it every step of the way. I literally remember calling her like the day after her surgery. I was sitting outside the hospital, and I called my godmother. I was like, I don't want to go in. I want to go back home to my kids. I said, because at the same time, I'm feeling like whoever got that picture should be up there with her ass. Like,
So once you guys had the conversation, did you end up breaking up from then?
Pretty much.
And so how long were you apart before you got back together?
We broke up, but I think she didn't take me serious. She never thought I would leave. She never thought it would go as far as it did.
Is that true, Sean?
I did, because it was one of those things, and I told her after we got through healing and mending and going through the really rough patch, I was like, I took you for granted, because the thing about Candy is she's very loyal. Like, once she loves you and once she's into you, that's all that she sees. Mm-hmm. And so we had our disagreements from time to time, but at the end of the day, she never went anywhere. And so for me, and in my sick, twisted mind, I was thinking, well, I ain't sleep with nobody, so I mean, she gonna get over it. Like, whatever. Like, yeah, I might have sent some bogus pictures and said some stuff I shouldn't say, but at the end of the day, like, the cookie didn't go nowhere.
Beloved. Look, let me help you, beloved. Cheating is anything that you will not do in front of your partner.
I know. Trust me, I understand. And so I did take her for granted. I literally didn't think. I was like, yeah, this is probably the maddest she's ever going to be, but we'll get through it, and it'll be fine, and we'll keep moving on.
So you ended up separating.
Yes. And filed for divorce, honey.
We ended up separating. I filed for divorce because during this time, remember, this woman had pushed me away by this period in time, it had literally been about 2 years. So it was 2 years of us. Our children were very, very small.
Right.
You know, we're working, we're doing all these things, but we were bumping heads for 2 years. So by this time, I'm fed up. I'm sexually frustrated. I'm emotionally
Wait. Hold on. Because you had your little snack on the side.
I was about to say, she wasn't sexually frustrated.
Look. She must thought I forgot that part.
Okay.
But see, right. So I was sexually frustrated, which made it easy for my affair to start.
Hold on right there. Hold on, Candy. Hold on. So, Sean, let me ask you this. when you learned that Candy was having an affair, and because you never actually gave the cookie up, but she actually was dipping in the cookie jar, did you feel like she had done worse than you?
Yes.
I knew it. I know you. I knew it.
And it's sad to say because it's one of those things where that's not the lesser of two evils. They're both evils. They're just different kinds.
Right.
And for a long time, when we were trying to even see if we could be friends again, that was one of the things that Candy said. She was like, I can't. You're like, you don't even think that you did anything wrong. So how dare I even say I'm going to be your friend because you don't even understand the extent of what you did. It took me a while to even get to that point. Once she filed for divorce, we got done with the divorce. I'm crying tears, boo-hooing, not eating. Like, it took me to get in that and sit in that to truly understand.
You had to strip yourself of that ego, because that's really ego.
Yes, because I was very arrogant with it.
Yeah.
Because of the fact that I am more technically savvy than Candy, I was very arrogant because I was like, I know how to cover my tracks. I'm not going to get caught. I've done it in past relationships. Almost like I'm invincible. So at the end of the day, it is what it is, you know. But when you get stripped down and you truly have to take a look in the mirror and be like, baby girl, like,
Right.
It was a reality check.
So you filed for the divorce, or Candy filed for the divorce. How long were you actually divorced? And because you have children, so you always had contact. But how long did you actually separate?
So we're still technically divorced. We're still legally divorced.
Right.
It made a year in February.
Yes, a year in February.
It made a year in February.
We started to try to...
Wait, the divorce has been a year?
It's been a year. It was a year in February, this past February.
Okay, so how long have you been back together?
Right, we started trying to get back together, we should say June or July, because it was like right as we started the Candy and Sean.
Right.
So you're coming up on a year.
We were separated for about 4 or 5 months.
And it's been off and on during this time. This is probably the most consistently on that we've been, because what a lot of people don't understand is even when you make the decision to cut off ties with people that you had an affair with, my situation, my affair, which I'm sure we'll get to that, my affair went much deeper than Sean's. I had 2, but the second one went much
Wait. You had 2?
Oh yeah.
I'm taking notes. Hold on.
Val, you're right. Cheating does start the conversation.
Okay, so listen. So where are you now in terms of trusting Sean, and Sean, you trusting Candy?
I would say
On a scale from 1 to 10, 10 being you absolutely trust, where are you?
I would probably say 8.
Okay.
And honestly, I would say 10. But the difference between Candy and I is I'm a very forgiving and I'm a very trusting person. Like when people get to know me and they learn about some of the things that I've dealt with and some of the people that I still communicate with, a lot of people are just like, you're probably one of the most forgiving people I've ever met in my life. Like I just don't even understand how you're able to get past some of the things that you've gotten past. And that's just naturally the kind of person that I am. And also it makes it easy because she gives me no reason to not trust her. So, there's no reason for me to be like, I feel like we're going down the same path because she doesn't give me that reason to anymore.
So let's go back to the beginning, Sean. What do you think drew you to someone else emotionally? And how and the second part of it is, how do you prevent it from happening again?
I think my biggest issue was I was just seeking attention. Because at the time when it started, there was a lot going on in our lives. Candy had started, she had just opened up her insurance agency. She was busy. She was working like 70 plus hours a week. I was working for her, and it seemed like our relationship was shifting because to me it felt less than a partner relationship and more like an employer-employee relationship.
Yeah.
Now. And so it was difficult for me to separate those two, especially if we were having a difficult time in the office and she came down on me, because you have to understand we're living together, working together, commuting together, and so we have a bad day in the office, things weren't jiving right, and I got to listen to this all the way home.
And then at the house. And
so for me it was very difficult. And so but the issue is when you ask me how can I prevent it, the biggest issue that I had is I had a very bad lack of communication. I never went to her and said, babe, this is how I'm feeling. Like, I'm not feeling good. I miss what we had. I don't feel connected to you on a romantic level anymore, and all of these things. And so learning from that and understanding, if we ever get to that point again, I know I need to open up my mouth, because I never even gave her a chance to try to fix it. I just started then, as soon as somebody showed me a little piece of attention that felt good, that felt like what I could get at home, I was drawn to that. And then for me, it was very entertaining. Like, I'm a big flirt, and so for me, it was very entertaining because I was able to get back to a piece of my life in the past before I was married and settled down, where I was able to flirt with this girl and that girl and do all these other things.
So, do you think you're going to get married again? What they grinning for? They grinning and carrying on?
I used to say no. I used to say no, but I think so. I think if there was ever a person that I would marry, she would be the one. She would be the one. I can't imagine sharing that with anybody else.
So let me ask you this: did you guys try counseling in terms of coming back together?
Oh, absolutely. We went through counseling for a very long time.
Like, that was like a necessity. Like, before we even discussed trying to get back together, and Candy brought that to me. She was like, before I can even remotely think about considering that, we've got to go to counseling.
Because, like Sean alluded to earlier, she's very forgiving, and I'm not necessarily going to say I'm not forgiving.
I'm not.
But I'm the type of person when I'm done with you, I'm done. And I don't double back to exes for a reason. You know what I'm saying? Because in my opinion, in the past, whatever broke us up or caused us to reach that point in our lives is going to resurface. And it's going to resurface 10 times worse. That was my perspective.
Right, and I don't think that that's necessarily true. I don't think that that's necessarily true. But and obviously you don't either, because you guys have come back. What I will say is, when it comes to cheating, I just don't know how forgiving I can become. That's the emotional part of me that feels and thinks that. But the intellectual side of me understands that there are almost 7 billion people in the world. And so who am I to think that if I'm with a person that they're only going to want to be with me? And so I've gotten to a place where I understand on a conceptual level that if a person cheats, it's not always that wine. If a person cheats, it's not always a sign that they no longer want to be with you. Sometimes they cheat just because it's a human instinct. It's an animal instinct, right? And I don't mean on a consistent basis. I just mean like if there's an infraction. But what I understand on a conceptual level is that our ability to be monogamous sometimes expires before the relationship ends. And what I mean is, I think that there are instances where some relationships you can be in them for 2 years, 5 years, or 6 months. I think every relationship offers something different. And I think one relationship, you may very well be able to be faithful for 5 consistent years and not step out, not cheat, not text. But I think that you may find yourself in another relationship for 10 years, and in the second year, you might find yourself struggling to be faithful, because I think that every relationship offers and serves a different purpose. You know what I'm saying? And sometimes just because you step out and cheat, it doesn't always mean that it's a sign that it's time to go. But I think that sometimes we start to dibble and dabble on the side because we haven't spoken up and said, you know what? I'm not happy here anymore, or I'm missing something here. We don't actually communicate, like you were saying earlier, Sean. We don't communicate, and sometimes a part of taking care of yourself, I believe, is telling people what you need. And I don't think we always tell each other what we need. So with that being said, do you believe in monogamy? Do you think it's possible for 2 people to be monogamous completely?
No.
I don't either.
So I have a theory. Can I share with you my
Yes,
theory?
absolutely.
I have a theory, and we've done videos about my theory. I've had mixed reviews in the comment section, but I have yet to see an example that disproves my theory. My theory is if you show me a relationship of two people, two men, two women, a man and a woman, it don't matter. Show me two people who have been in a committed relationship for 10 years or more, I'll always show you infidelity. The question is, do you know about the infidelity or not? And everybody get mad and they say, well, not my husband would never, my wife would never. And I do exactly what you just did. I throw the hand because, like you said, it's billions of people in the world.
Yeah, but even with us knowing that, if we understand that on a conceptual level, then why, when it happens in our relationship, are we ready to run and call it quits?
Because emotionally, you get attached to a person and you start getting this idea in your mind that you're mine, I'm yours, and that's all it's supposed to be. Even though, like you said, intellectually, I think people, you have two different sides of yourself. You have the emotional side and you have the intellectual side, and they don't always mix. And as soon as that person steps out, then you have a problem. Also, some people have a problem with it because of the idea of deceit. That's what makes it bad. When you feel like there's deception, you've been lied to, that's a whole nother level to it. So even though we know that, and we know that, yeah, you probably are going to check out somebody else at some point in time, and I get it, but it's still that deception part of it that probably makes it even worse.
But I think it's different than that. I think it's human nature. We as human beings expect more from the other person than we give in return. That's what I think it is. It's one of those things where Sean was fine with me never knowing what she did. And keep in mind, what she did happened first.
Yeah.
But to one of our best friends who happens to be the kid's godmother, our sorority sister, Sean badmouthed me. She cried to this woman. She cried to her and was like, you won't believe what Candy did. She wanted her and her husband to sit down and talk.
Well, her self-righteous ass.
Exactly. She pretty much was begging people like, y'all would not believe what she's putting me through. All the while, she was doing her own thing.
Right.
Do you know how angry I was?
I'm sure.
It just goes back to the fact that we as human beings expect more than we give.
Right. And so with that being said, I think that even if you're in a 5-year relationship or a 10-year relationship, I think there can be sections of monogamy. But I do, like you, Candy, think that there will be periods. And I mean, I think I've been single now for 7 years. Part of it has been for professional reasons. Part of it also I've recently uncovered is because I'm probably a little scared. Because I'm a very strong person, but I just don't want to have to handle another heartbreak. I don't really want to deal with that right now. And not to say that has to happen, but even if it's not even cheating, but even if it's just an instance of the relationship comes to an end, because every relationship is going to come to an end. Not because somebody cheats, but because we all going to check out. We going to all die. So somebody is going to end at some point. So I just don't want to have to, navigate that. Let me ask you this. There's this, I don't know if you're aware of this, but in the gay community, there's this perception that lesbians navigate relationships better than gay men. Lesbians have longer relationships than gay men. Would you agree? Is that a stereotype, or do you think there's some truth to it?
Come on now, be honest.
I don't know if I've ever known that, because my thing was I've always heard gay people in general, like every time I talk to like a heterosexual person, they're always thinking that we're promiscuous and that we don't stay in long-term relationships, but it's never been segmented out as, gay men versus lesbians. I've never really heard that. So I can't really speak to that, but I know I have definitely heard the thing where, gay people, they all over the place.
I've definitely heard that too.
My only point of reference will be friends that I have, and the gay guys that I'm friends with most are either single or relationship jumpers, where the women, they are usually like serial.
Well, one of the things that I will say is, what I've always heard about lesbians, baby, y'all gonna get in a relationship quick.
Oh yeah.
And not only are you gonna get in it quick.
We call it the lesbian timeline.
Oh yes, the lesbian timeline is real.
Yeah.
Not only are you going to get into the relationship quickly, but you're going to move in together. Something about a U-Haul. There's a joke about a U-Haul.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, like by date three, you probably have a U-Haul.
So wait, what's the thing you just said? Lesbian what?
The lesbian timeline.
What is that?
It's an accelerated timeline of relationship. Like you meet somebody on Sunday, you're on a date by Monday, you slept together by Wednesday, and you're moving in by Saturday.
What's your U-Haul? Well, I will say this. I remember having a conversation many years ago. It was a group conversation, and it was called Bridging the Gap. And this particular one was talking about bridging the gap between lesbians and gay men. And I'll never forget, they were asking like some of the reasons why our communities don't always mix, right? So one of the lesbians said, I remember her saying, and if she was to walk in this room right now, I wouldn't remember her face, but I will never forget what she said. And I remember her saying, part of the reason that she doesn't like to party with gay men is because gay men often say the word bitch this, bitch that, bitch. She said, and I don't want to be called a bitch. That was the one thing. And then when the conversation moved to relationships and we started asking what I just asked you, do you think there's some truth to this idea that lesbians tend to have longer relationships than gay men? And she said, I believe that is true. And she said, and part of it is because when you guys, she was talking to the men in the room. She said, when you guys, the moment you find out your partner isn't perfect, you're ready to go. And she said, we don't do that. And that thing resonated with me. It resonated with me because when I was 26 I came out at 22, but when I was like 26 and 27, I remember feeling like, I remember grading gay men on different things. I was looking at the idiosyncrasies, how many feminine qualities did they have? Did they have the gay lisp? You know, like some gay men have that that list, or like some of them when they grab the glass, their pinky is out. Like yes, and I wasn't alone in this. I remember my friends and I, we would have these conversations like, oh girl, he too feminine, just whatever. Like we were just we were counting all of those things. And as I've gotten older and gotten more comfortable in my skin, I realized that that's just internalized homophobia, and part of it is just this desire that some gay men have to be able to navigate the world without being clocked, without anybody knowing they're gay. And it's impossible to do that if you were a guy who has all of these, feminine idiosyncrasies. So when she said that, it just really resonated. So again, are there things that happen like that in the lesbian community where maybe somebody is too butch or somebody is, whatever? Do you have that kind of a scale grading system?
You do. I don't know if it's necessarily a situation where it's like I can't be seen with you because I'm trying to hide, but it's very much so. We call them studs and femmes. Well, in this geographic location, studs and femmes. Some call them butch and butch and femmes, or whatever you want to call them. But we definitely have that gradient scale, and there's no black or white. Like for example, everybody would see me and say I'm an absolute femme. Like there's nothing about me that when you see me, like,
you would think,
nobody would know unless you talk to me. However, Candy, if somebody saw her, they'll be like, I bet my next check that she gay. Like, because she wears guys' clothes and she's a little bit more masculine, etc. Then there's some women that are just absolutely men. Like, you look at them and you be like, I can't even believe you're a woman. So, I mean, it just really depends on where you fall at on that scale. So that is out there, and there's people that have preferences. Like me personally, and no offense, because there's some very attractive studs out there, that's just not what I'm attracted to. It's not my thing. Candy is probably as far as I will go. And then there's some that are just like, well, I can't get with the pillow princess, like me. Like, I can't get with you because you just too girly. It's too much. So it just really depends on the preference, but there's absolutely that there as well as in lesbian.
Well, let me ask, do you have like this division though? Because, for example, like in the gay community, you often have gay men who can pass as straight, who may not be extremely feminine on the surface, who won't even move in the same circles with a queen, like a really feminine guy. Do you kind of have that same kind of really discrimination within the community, your community?
I think you do. You got closeted lesbians just like you got closeted gay men.
Right.
I'm
would say maybe about 2 years ago I cut all my hair off, and I think with that I'm treated differently within our community and outside of our community. But I don't know. It's probably more outside of the community than within the community. Mm-hmm.
So when did you know you were gay? What were the feelings like? What was it like?
For me, I can remember being as young as 5. I remember being in my grandmother's backyard and kissing one of my friends at 5 and getting caught by my dad and being humiliated and running upstairs and hiding because I couldn't imagine what my dad would say. And that was the youngest memory that I have at 5. I didn't actually act on it until college, but I can remember even being in elementary school looking at my best friend, or being in high school and looking at the girls in gym class. So I mean, I knew early on, but I didn't know exactly what it was. I just knew that I found girls cute or attractive or whatever, but I didn't identify as that because I had boyfriends and all that. So yeah.
Right. And I think I remember first looking at the girl jumping rope across the street when I was like 5. But my first encounter with a girl and girlfriend was in high school. It was when I was 15.
So what was that? Tell me that experience, and then Sean, I want to know your experience, because you said yours was in college. What was your first experience, Candy?
So there was a young lady that I went to high school with who also, when we became better friends, she joined our church. And so we dated all through high school, so from the time that I was 15 until I was 18. But we got more comfortable as time went on. We got more careless.
Did you think she was gay?
No, she wasn't gay. She was bi.
Okay.
I think maybe after me, she had maybe 1 or 2 other girlfriends.
Okay.
But around the time that I was 18, we just got careless at school. We were walking down the hall holding hands and that sort of thing. And what we forgot.
Wait a minute. What year was this?
This was 2001. 2001.
Okay.
And so we walking down the hall holding hands, and one of the kids that went to our school was also a member of our church choir. So they went back, told their family, their mother told my mother and grandmother and aunt.
Well, what did you think was gonna happen? Y'all walking down the classroom, down the hallway.
You know what? I don't think I thought that far.
Right.
At that age, I don't think I thought about the big picture and everything coming full circle. And so my family brought it to me, and they were pretty much like, look, if you're not ashamed of what you're doing, when we ask you this question, you're going to tell us the truth. And I'm looking at them like, if you can handle the truth, then I'll be honest.
Right.
I'll give you the truth.
So what was the first sexual experience like? And where were you?
I was at her house. Because, see, back then, we were in high school, so you could pull that whole, my mom spending the night at my best friend.
Right.
You could pull that. That. So, yeah.
Okay. So did you feel nervous or anxious or grieved? Because after my very first experience, and I write about it in my first book, after my very first experience, I felt, and it wasn't even my first experience, it was the first time a guy kissed my lips. And I just felt like, oh my God, this motherfucker just kissed my lips. I can never participate in another game of truth or dare and pretend like I've never kissed another guy. Like that was what I was saying. But I felt like grief stricken. Mm-hmm. So did you feel that?
No. I think it was that's when my spiritual battle started.
Got it.
So for me, it was like all those things that I was taught prior to came full circle. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't necessarily me having a hard time dealing with it, because I knew early on when I was a kid that I was attracted to girls.
So did y'all have actual sex?
Oh yeah.
You,
yeah.
Hold on. Now remember, this is so much to say. Did you eat the box?
Oh yeah.
The first time?
Oh yeah. Why halfway do anything?
Hey, you're right.
Why go to the playground if you ain't gonna get on the swing?
Listen. So Sean, what was your first experience? I know it was in college.
Yes, so my first experience was with my boyfriend at the time. So,
No. Damn that. I want to know the first experience with a girl.
Yes, this is it.
You said my boyfriend.
I know. You gotta listen. So was saying how he wanted a threesome, and I was like, okay,
Oh.
well, so I kind of been attracted to women, you know. So
You
know,
said that to him?
Yeah. So I was like, you know, why not? So he was like, in his head, he was like, yes. You know, I'm about to make this happen.
But clearly he was the weakest link. He got cut out the deal.
So he knew a girl that, and at the time I didn't know that she was gay. I didn't know she was a lesbian, but it was his friend. And he was like, you know, I know somebody that would be willing to, you know, go ahead and go there with us. And I was like, okay, bet. So she came over to our apartment because we were living together. So she came over to our apartment one day, and in so many words, push come to shove, and it went down. And I just remember me and her had our interaction. He was off in the cut, you know, perusing the scene and checking everything out. And I just remember, and before you asked, yes, I ate the box, and I was quite good at it, because afterwards, she was like, I don't believe this is your first time. It could not possibly have been your first time. And I was like, yes, it was, and thank you very much.
We accept referrals.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And I just remember that after that experience, once him and I started getting rocky and kind of and basically breaking up, I never had another man after that. Like he was the last and final for me, because I after that experience, I wanted it more and more.
Right.
I was just like this. I felt more comfortable. I enjoyed it more. And so after him and I broke up, I was like, where's the line?
Right. So what would you say to people that say it's easier for women to come out than it is for gay men, especially black gay men?
I would agree and say that it is, because men are chastised so badly and looked down upon so badly when it comes to being gay, that I would agree with that statement. I think that it is, because if you think about it, even if you think about pornography and all those things, it's sexy to see two women. Like, that's the thing, and that's a turn on, and that's amazing, and all guys' fantasy is to have two women, all that. And so, but when it comes to men, it's not that. And so there's this negative stigma with men being gay. And so I would agree that, and it's not fair. I don't think it's fair. I've never thought it was fair.
It's absolutely worse for men to come out.
Yeah.
Well, from a society perspective, but from a personal perspective, because I think that from a personal perspective, a lesbian is probably struggling just as much as a gay boy. You understand what I'm saying? Not from society's perspective, but from a personal viewpoint. You understand what I'm saying? Because I think that sometimes people think that it's easier for women to come out. Yeah, society is okay with, we're not okay, but they're easier to digest two women together. But in terms of a young girl coming to terms with her sexuality, do you think it's still sometimes difficult?
I think it is, because I've known people that were like, I struggled, I hid, I rejected it. I had boyfriends when I didn't really like them, just because I was trying to, hide it. And yeah, so I mean, I think no matter who you are, depending on whether you're male or female, it doesn't matter. Everybody's gonna have a struggle. I personally didn't. That was never my story. But I always had the attitude of, this is who I am. If you don't like it, then you kick rocks. Like, I don't care what you think. I was on a college campus when I came out, and I did not care. I was in a sorority. I was on a college campus. Everybody knew me for my boyfriend. Like, that's all they knew was him and I for years. And so for me to be like, well, I don't deal with guys anymore. They were just like, really? Like, but I didn't care. But that was not everybody's story. I knew people who struggled. They hid. They would tell me stories about rejection from their families and all of that. So I mean, I think it's really subjective, and it depends on that person. But I think that both people struggle in some aspects.
Right, because I hid, but I think I played two different people for a very long time. Like, I was a soft stud on campus, where I would dress like this, and then I would come home on the weekend, and I had long hair, so I would have my hair silked, and I would have on my dress slacks and my pumps and my purse and all that, and then I would be ready to go to church with my family and all of that. And I lived this double life, so to speak, because I've naturally always been a people pleaser. I love making my family happy, and I love seeing my grandmother and my aunt and my mother proud of me. And not to say that they're not proud of me in this seat.
But you didn't want to disappoint them.
Exactly. So I did this dance for a very long time, and I actually did it up until the time that Sean and I got married. And I sat down and I wrote my grandmother probably like a 4 or 5 page letter, and I was like, I can't do this anymore, and this isn't me.
And what did she say?
And my mother was there when she read it, and she was like, I'm 54 years old. I've never seen my mother cry like that. She was like, Mama just sat at the dining room table and just bawled.
Did your mom know though?
You know what? My mom knew. Everybody knew, because remember, my whole coming out experience through church was when I was 18.
Yeah.
So everybody knew, and they tolerated me being gay as long as they could pass me around their friends. Like in the small town that I grew up in, my family was like the Black Cosbys. Like we're the next thing to political excellence in this town.
Right.
And so when it comes to our family name, my grandfather's very proud.
protective.
My grandmother was very proud. So it was really a lot about what people thought. So
Yeah.
as long as I didn't look gay, I was fine.
But I think that's ultimately what traps most of us. Even if it's not a political family that we come from, I think culturally, as Black people, we've been taught, like, you just don't shame your family. There's certain things that you just don't put out in the public. And then, of course, you got the whole religious component or religion component. And I think that what makes it so difficult for us as a community is, because I've always said, like, the journey of Black gay people is very different from that of white gay people. Not to say that there aren't white people who struggle with it, but I think the journey is very different in that we receive flack from the Black church, the Black family, and the Black community. Because even in...
People don't understand how bad it is with the Black church.
Right.
That's maybe...
And because even in the wake of this whole Black Lives Matter movement, in some instances, it doesn't even feel as if Black LGBTQ people are a part of that. In terms of the perspective of the Black community, like, we don't feel protected by the Black community. And so that's part of the reason why, on June 2nd, I'm doing this live podcast in Atlanta, nigger versus faggot. Words that hurt, nigger versus faggot. Because I think that oftentimes Black people think that the word nigger is an inflamed word, but will sometimes casually use this word faggot as if it's not as egregious.
Right.
So I think there's some work to do around that. Let me ask you this. I think there's this misconception that only gay men can be DL or down low. And I know personally that there can be women that can be that way. Do you have any experiences of that? Like women that you know that may be married to men, but they moonlight with women or, whatever?
Yeah. Mine was a little bit different because she wasn't completely on the DL. But when you deal, in my experience, when you have women like that, women are more of a hobby. It's not necessarily like a serious thing. Like,
right.
Yes, I'm married to my husband. This is my life, whatever. Every now and then I may have a little chick on the side because it's something to do type of thing. So, but I've never experienced it where somebody was just completely on the DL where it was like, you got to come in through the back door, make sure it's midnight, don't turn your headlights off before you turn into the alley. I never had that type of thing.
Right.
I did.
I know. That's why I looked at you.
Keep talking. I'm going to grab my charger. Keep talking.
So for me, my experience, I would probably say would be the lady, well, actually, no, the second one more than the first. The second young lady that I had the affair with.
Oh.
I would probably say her more so than anybody. But she wasn't at a point where she had came to grips with the fact that she was by herself. And so it was during our situationship that she self-discovered and started to really acknowledge the fact that she was a bisexual woman. But there were a lot of aspects of that and that she just simply didn't feel comfortable with. Even how I dressed. How I dress. And she owned a very large building in Chicago that had, I think, several apartments. And so some of her family members lived in some of the apartments. and she lived in one.
Mm-hmm.
And so even coming out of her unit, running into a different family member, she would be like, well, can you not wear your hat outside? Or can you do this? Or can you do that? Or can you know, there were certain aspects of my appearance that she didn't want them to make assumptions.
Right.
And there was just a lot of interactions between the two of us. So I was like, girl, please, you taking me back 20 years. I can't do this.
I've been living out loud for so long.
Right.
I don't have time.
Yeah.
Like, you need to be ducking and dodging from my wife, and you worried about the person seeing me. Girl, bye. Baby, bye.
So what was it that? So let's go back to the beginning of this. What was it that brought you two back together? Like, how did you start having the conversations around trying again?
Honestly, I would say our kids. I think that if we had not had children together, the conversation probably would not have ever come up, because we would have went our separate ways and there would not have been anything pulling us back together. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I know there's a lot of people who say, you know, I stayed with him for the kids, or I stayed with her for the kids, or whatever. We didn't do that. But I think that it was really our babies, because we still had to talk every day. We still had to have, you know, conversations about, you know, about our kids, and it just, us still having to spend that time around one another, we started to be able to heal and then start to see each other in a different light again.
It was 100% about the kids, because I remember we were divorced and still living together for several months. And so it became a point where we had to sit the kids down, and
how old are the kids? Or how old were they then? Four. Okay.
They're 4. They're twins. They're 4.
Okay.
So we had to sit them down and in their 4-year-old mind say, because they had just turned 4 at the time.
But they were 3.
Oh, they were 3. They were 3. So we had to sit them down and explain, you know, they call her Mima. Mima is leaving. She's going to have a house. You guys will have, you know, your own rooms over there. Then you'll have your rooms here. And we were explaining this to them. And our daughter just started crying hysterically. And she was like, and they were both like, we don't want that. And they were very sad.
Because I think that parents, especially adults think that if they keep the fussing and everything away, that kids won't really understand that. But kids, they may not be able to verbalize it or to be able to explain it, but they absolutely can tell from energy. I think if no other time in our lives, we know as children what energy feels like. And you know, we know how to trust our instincts as children. Now, I don't know where that shit goes away at some point. But, you know, and of course, as you become an adult, you have to sometimes reel that back in. You have to learn how to tap into your feelings and that energy and pay attention. But children understand dynamics.
Yeah, right. They do.
Right. Right. So, yeah, so it was us having several conversations with them, where then we started noticing, even, you know, they started having behavior issues in school. And it just became a lot. And so every time we tried to pull away, there was something with the kids that was kind of forcing us back and bringing us back. And so I had a conversation with my godmother, and she was just like, could you really see somebody stepping in and being a step parent to the kids and loving and respecting them the way that Sean does? And so she was just like, I'm not saying stay together for them, but is there anything in you that wouldn't be willing to give it one last try, even going through counseling? And so I was just like, okay. So we started spending more time together. We started going through counseling together, and we would go through these ups and downs. Because every time we felt like we were getting to a better place, we had to go back to counseling and rip all those bandages off and deal with stuff that we thought we were over. And then out of the bag would come new information that I didn't know, which would make me mad like it just happened.
Oh, yeah. And I think that's why a lot of people avoid counseling, because that shit is going to come back. You have to, it's almost like a reality show. You know, they tape reality shows 6 months prior, and then like people can resolve things on the show, but then once the show airs, it's like it comes back up again. And it's just like, girl, we already resolved that. So I get that. I get that.
Exactly.
It's a form of avoidance.
And it's so crazy because the people who have followed us for a long time, they've seen this roller coaster. Because when Sean and I decided to do the page, it was by accident. We had no idea that we were going to create a platform and do videos on a consistent basis. We never wanted to. We never intended to. We've always been very private people. It just happened.
Right.
And so people have seen the ups and downs, and people have been like, "Are y'all crazy?" Like the brief time that she moved out, people were like, "Are you crazy?"
Let me ask you this, because you've mentioned your godmother a few times. One of the biggest things that I've learned as a gay person, one of the things that I think our relationships lack is that support system. Especially if you're a gay person that comes from a family that doesn't believe in it, or if you're not out to your family, then you don't have a support system behind you when your relationship is in trouble. Case in point, I have a nephew who's married. And I remember many years ago, I don't remember now, it's probably been about 10 years ago now, he and his wife were going through some issues. And I actually didn't go to their wedding because they kind of just like planned this wedding and they went away. And some of my immediate family went, but I was here in Atlanta and they went away. Long story short, I remember when they started to go through some trouble, my mom would call me and say, "Yeah, well, they going through some stuff, and and I can tell that his wife wants to talk to me about different things when she comes to pick up the kids," because my mom was like the meeting spot. Like they would pick up the kids from there and drop them off there, that kind of thing. And she would say, "I can tell that she wants to talk to me, but I'm not going to get in the middle of it, da 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 da." And I remember saying to my mother, I said, "Listen to me." I said, "Why are you calling me and telling me about this? You were at their wedding, which means you are responsible for holding them accountable to their vows. That's why you invite people to your wedding. You invite people to the wedding to hold you accountable to the vows, so that when your relationship goes through trouble, you can say, 'Well, girl, listen,' or 'God, man, listen, I was at your wedding. You said for better or for worse, I'm sitting here holding you to your accountable." And what I realize is a lot of times our relationships, and this is pre-marriage equality, we often didn't have the luxury of saying, "Okay, listen, we've committed to these vows, et cetera, et cetera." But more importantly, we often don't have family members to support us and say, "Listen, I was there," because again, that whole dynamic of we don't agree with you being gay, or I'm not out to my mother and you're out to you're out to yours. So it's always that kind of a missing component.
That's true. Yeah, I mean, I'm grateful because I was blessed with both sides of my family being accepting and loving. Mm-hmm. When I came out to my mom's side, it was Thanksgiving. And I came out to my family and nothing changed. They just said, "So," in so many words, "So, we love you anyway. Like, you are who you are, and that's fine." Mm-hmm. Like,
so was there any resistance from either side? Did either of you have friends or family members that were like, "Mm-mm"?
I did not. That was not my story. Candy did, but I did not. I didn't. Like I said, I just was blessed not to have any of those issues.
Okay.
Right. So my experience was actually different. So as I mentioned, my family had that conversation with me where they said, if you're not ashamed or embarrassed or whatever, then you'll tell us the truth. Well, that was when I was 18 and I was getting ready to go away to college. And they pretty much said, "Okay, well, you grown. We can't whoop you. What can we do about it? But we want to let you know that we completely disapprove. So we're not paying for you to go to school. We're not paying for anything. Whatever you decide to do from this point forward, you're doing it on your own. Or you can live a righteous lifestyle and you can do what you were raised to do, and you can come back over here to the good life."
Let me tell you something. Let me tell you something about y'all people. Look, y'all people, black people, because we always talking about this whole, you need to live a righteous lifestyle. Girl, you got 3 children out of wedlock. You got 3 children with 3 different babies' daddies. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I can't stand that whole, you holding me to a standard that you're not even living to. You know what I'm saying? And that's why I personally struggle with religion and church. I have no issues with God and spirituality. I just struggle with religion, because religion has always been about power and control.
Right. So long story short, I ended up going away to school. I think I had maybe $50. I know it was less than $100 to my name. And I tried from that point forward to do everything on my own. I called home maybe 2 or 3 times for money, but I tried to keep it at a bare minimum, which was hard for me because I always grew up relatively spoiled and privileged, etc. And so it just taught me how to just rely on myself and live in my truth very early on. And I told a story several months back when we first started doing our videos on how my senior year in college, I slept in my car some nights because my financial aid ran out and I didn't have money for a dorm.
And your family wasn't gonna support you because you're gay.
I didn't want to call them. I was.
But they had told you also. Listen, you're on your own, right?
Right. But I'm knowing that they probably would have given me the money, but they would have given me the money and threw it in my face. You know what I'm saying? And so there were a lot of nights where either I slept on, my friends' floors of their dorm room, or slept on people's couches, or in my car, or whatever. I was just determined I had come too far not to graduate. And so that was my truth for a long time. And it took, from that point, almost up until Sean and I decided to get married, for my relationship with my family to sort of mend. And it's just been back to normal ever since then.
Right. Well, let me ask you this last thing. You have twins. Did you guys adopt? Did you guys have a baby or babies the traditional way? Did you bring a guy in? Like, how did you do it?
Well, Candy carried the babies.
Oh, listen, you're just surprising me all this night.
I knew this was gonna surprise you.
You are surprised. But you know why that's important though? Because sometimes it's really good because we assume, just a lot of things just from looking at people or whatever. That's amazing. So you weren't the first one to cheat it, and you were the one that carried the babies. Okay, I'm listening.
And how many fertile myrtle? Right.
Come on, fertile myrtle.
We did not do it the natural way. So no, there was no man involved. Although my aunts suggested that we do that because they said it was much cheaper anyway. But we just did artificial insemination, and like she said, fertile myrtle, got pregnant on the first try, and we were blessed to have our boy and our girl. Right.
Wow.
Our kids, we did IUI through a fertility clinic, but we just chose a sperm donor through a sperm bank. He is a Hispanic man, so our kids are biracial.
Was that intentional? Did you want to choose someone Hispanic, or what was the process? Or did you look at more of like medical history? How did you choose?
That's exactly what it was. So our thing was, it's not that we were opposed to African American, because we're African American, but we just saw that in a lot of the medical histories, there was high blood pressure, cancer, then it was the sickle cell anemia trait that we had to be concerned about, and it was just a lot of things. And so, like you said, as we kept going through and looking at the medical histories and things like that, this Hispanic donor, it was like crystal clear. The family was crystal clear. He was crystal clear. We even looked at Italian. We looked at Spain. I mean, we looked at a lot of different. So it wasn't just we're gonna find an Hispanic donor. But it was just a culmination of all those things.
Right. So do you think that at some point you guys will want to meet the father, or?
We did choose a donor who's open. It's called open donor, which means that they have the option once they turn 18. We can't, but they have that option.
The kids can. Okay.
That was important to us because I feel like every child wants to know where they came from.
Absolutely.
So for us, that was super important to us, but which was another determination as to how we picked, the donor that we did.
Right. That's awesome. Anything else that you want to say? Anything you want to leave the people with?
I think the only thing that I would want to say is if anybody chooses to follow our page, we would love to have you. But just understand that you are on a journey with two imperfect people just trying to navigate through life. You are going to see ups and downs. You're seeing us on a road to mending. It's a very long road. And we just hope that people hearing our story will help them in some capacity. Is our story everybody's story? Absolutely not. But if it helps somebody, that's the main thing behind the whole Candy and Shine platform. We just like to help people. And so when we tell our story and we get those inbox messages like, you opened my eyes, you helped me, I've been going through, you make me laugh, like anything like that, that's what makes us do what we do.
Right.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, I can't. You know what? I can't really think of anything else. That's she pretty much.
Yeah, that's a good way to close. I think that what we should do is we should try to do a conversation once a month. We can choose different topics, and then we just decide what we're going to talk about. But we just choose one day. We can start with like one day a month, and maybe we can increase to twice a month. We'll just see how it goes. But we could do once a month, and we can maybe do conversations like this, because a part of what I want to do with social media is to use it to really affect people, to really grow people, and not just get on here with a whole bunch of foolishness and fights and seeing all this kind of nonsense. But one of the things that you guys said that kind of triggered something. I did a book signing many years ago in Philadelphia, and there was a young boy who was in college. He was in college, and he just happened to wander into this bookstore. I think I may have shared this story with you guys. I know I've said it on here before. He wandered into this bookstore because he was coming in to get some of the free condoms, because they usually have like a bowl of like free condoms in the gay bookstores. And so he had wandered in, and I just so happened to be in there doing a signing, and he overheard me. And so he hung around, and at the end of the book signing, he came up to me. I guess he was waiting for me to come up. He was waiting to come up to me. And so he came over, and he told me that he overheard some of what I said, and he said, "I would really love to get your book, but I can't afford it. I'm in college." And so I gave him a copy of my first book, and he went on to tell me that he was West Indian. And his mom, he was in college, his mom put him out of the house when she learned that he was gay. And not only did she put him out of the house, but she stopped paying for his college education. She called her sister, his aunt, and told her that he was gay and told her to disown him. So he didn't have any type of family connection. And so I said to him, I said, "Well, where are you staying?" So for a little while he was staying out in the streets or whatever. And at some point, an older guy, I don't know how much older, but an older guy allowed him to start staying in his house, but in exchange for sex. So I was really, really concerned. So he was coming in to get the condoms. And I said to him, "Well, what happens if this guy decides that he no longer wants to use condoms? Then what happens?" And he says, "Well, I don't know." And so I got with the bookstore owner, because it's the oldest gay bookstore in the country. It's Giovanni's Room in Philadelphia. So I got with the owners and had them connect him with some social services or some gay organizations, hopefully to help him. But so if we can maybe have a conversation like this once a month on different topics, even if we're just taking conversations from parents of LGBTQ people and we're talking to them, we can figure it out. But I think this is a really great start.
Yes, absolutely. We would love that. We've been connected at the hip with you ever since before we reached out to you.
Yeah.
So we're families.
I appreciate that.
We'll be honored to do that.
I appreciate that. I think that could be really dope. So, all right, so we'll figure that out. We'll figure out the next time that we'll do it. So we'll look at doing something in June, because we've done two this month now. Yeah. So we'll look at doing something in June, and we'll just we can just come up with some ideas and just go from there.
All right. Sounds like a
all right. All right, well, listen, this has been so much to say. Again, this podcast is free. It's available in Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, Spotify, Google Play, Stitcher, TuneIn, YouTube. And if you don't know how to find a podcast, just Google So Much to Say podcast, and it will take you to one of the platforms. Or you can go to my website, www.craigthewriterstewart.com. Again, join us June 2nd. That's Saturday, June 2nd in Atlanta for the very first live So Much to Say podcast. Tickets are available also through my website. So be safe, keep loving yourself.